So in this video here, we're going to take a look at how you can enhance your machine learning workflow with logic stages in V7. We're going to take a look at some use cases and also some examples of how we can use these new logic stages with V7 in your own workflows when you're creating your datasets, when training your models. So building machine learning solutions that deliver accurate results requires high quality training data. However, this process is far more complex than merely gathering files and feeding them to a model where we just go in, annotate them, feed them through the model. It is basically like really important that we have good data to feed into our model because again, trash in, trash out for our models. So your project needs a structured and organized approach to ensure that all data points are labeled consistently and also accurately. This requires like high quality control and validation procedures of your workflow, and that is one of the cool features of V7. And now they have this new logic stage that we can add to our workflow. So logic stages is a new feature within V7 and it offers like enhanced control over advanced data annotation workflows. We can definitely just throw it into our existing workflow, play around with it. We can throw it to different review stages and so on. I'm going to give you some examples in just a second. So by using these logic stages from V7, we can go in, filter out like low quality data points. So let's say that we have some blurred images. We can go in, train a model that can detect blurred images. We set up a logic state. If the image is blurred, we will just throw it to the archive. And if it's not blurred, we will throw it further in our machine learning workflow. And then we can go in, annotate, throw it through different review stages. It could also be like route files to review stages, through consensus stages, and also through webhooks. So let's say that we have a data set where we want to detect tumors, for example. Then if we detect a tumor, we will probably need to feed that over a webhook to actually like ping a more experienced person at a senior level. And then we can actually just pass it through different review stages. We can route the files around with our logic stages combined with all the other cool features and stages we have with V7. We can also send custom notifications to team members with the webhooks. We can split annotation tasks between like different teams. So if some different teams have special like competences, you can compare the performance of different models. You can also use the consensus stages with that. You can combine the consensus stages and webhooks together with these logic stages as well. We can also validate the output of a model. So these logic stages can be used for a lot of different things. They are really easy to work with, and this just makes your workflow way better, and you can do way more customizations to it. Okay, so we've now jumped into V7. I'm going to show you how we can set up these logic stages in our workflow. We're going to create a workflow here from scratch. So we basically just have a data set here with ultrasound images, ultrasound files. We can just take an example here. I'm just going to discard these changes to the workflow. Then if we go in here, this is basically just the images that we want to take a look at. So this is basically just videos from ultrasound. Here we just have some different annotations. We can just take a look at some of them. But basically here we have the video annotation tool from V7. I also have videos about that, so definitely check that out. It will help you label your images and videos way faster, and is actually really easy to get started with and use. So these are the examples that we have. We have different tags. So we both have like a difficult tag. We also just have a standard tag. And then we can base these logic stages on our actual like attributes for our annotations, but also based on the labels and classes that we have. So now we're just back to our workflow from scratch. We have our data set. First of all, we have connected our data set. Now we can go in and add these stages over to the right. We both have the annotation state, consensus, model. So we can actually have and train a model. We can also use pre-trained models to do auto labeling of our images. That is really useful. I have videos about most of these stages here on my channel. Definitely check it out. They have some really cool things, and especially the webhook stage down here, which was the last video that we covered. So first of all here, we're basically just going to set up the first annotation state. So again, we won't use an AI model for doing the initial labeling of this data set here. So we're just going to have an annotation state here. We're going to add it, and then we can go in and connect our data set to the annotation state. So we're just going to call this annotation state here for junior. So this is the junior annotation state. So this is basically just our initial labeling of our data set. So now we have a junior state. We can then apply a logic state here. So this is the one that we're going to show in this video. So we just go over here to the right. Then we can choose this logic state. We're just going to drag that in. Now we can see that we're just going to connect our annotations from the first initial labeling team. Again, you can go in here and assign whatever team member you want to assign to that specific task. And then you can actually have different teams working on different parts of the data set. Then you can actually have different levels for your annotation team. So you can have junior levels, you can have senior levels, depending on like how far are you in the workflow. So now we're going to connect this annotations from the junior stage to the logic stage. We're basically just going to combine it in this way. Now over to right here, we can see that we have our logic stage. We're just going to call that logic, but then we can set up rule 1 here. We just have this annotation. So this is the annotation rule that we're going to set up. So now we can see that we get this logic annotation. I'm just going to zoom in here so you guys can see what's going on. So if annotation is, and then we can actually go in and choose what it is. So here we can choose a value. So it could either be like one of the attributes that we chose over in the start when we labeled our data set. So we can actually have a tag called difficult. So let's say we have a junior labeling the initial data set, then if the person doesn't really know like how to label it, it could act like just assign this attribute to that image, and then we can act like just route it to another review stage or another labeling team on a higher level. So let's just start with that. So here we're just going to call that tag or difficult, but here I'm just going to call it difficult. So we're going to say that if annotation is difficult, then we can route it to some other stage. So then we're going to do that. Here we're just going to have an annotation senior state. So here we're just going to call this annotation stage senior. So we have a senior state here. So if the annotation is difficult for the junior labeler, we'll just throw it into the senior. There we go. And else, if it's not difficult to label, we can then throw it through a review stage before it goes into our dataset. So if it's not difficult, if the junior labeler is actually like able to label the dataset, we'll just throw it down to a review stage before we actually like just throw it to our complete dataset. We just have a review stage here, so it's basically just the first review stage and the only review stage in this example. But then we basically just take this. I'll add a new stage here with our complete dataset. So we're basically just going to add that. And then we're just going to, if they're accepted here in the review stage, we'll just throw it inside of our dataset. So if they're rejected down here in the review stage, we'll throw it up to the senior labeler. Then after the senior labeler is done with actually like labeling the images, we'll just throw it down into the review stage again. So here we're just going to drag it down to the review stage. Now we have connected that, and then we can actually just go into the last review stage. If the annotations is then corrected by the senior labeler and they get accepted here in the review stage, we'll just throw it into the complete stage, and then you can base your logic on top of that. You can apply more logic to it. You can have like consensus stages, webhooks, and so on. So you could also like have another review stage. So if they have been labeled by the senior labeler but still rejected here in a second review stage, you can then just discard the images, throw the image through a webhook as we went over in the last video. So there's actually like a lot of things that you can do with these stages in the workflows with V7, and that is actually like one of the very cool features. I really like these workflows that we can set up. We can do a lot of customizations to our machine learning workflows when we're creating these datasets, because again, it is really important that we have the best dataset possible when we're training our AI models. Nowadays, it is not really about the models. It is more about the data, and they actually have the correct labeled data, the best data possible to feed into our model. So now I'm going to show you another example where we can use these logic stages together with a trained AI model. So we have our data set again. We have these dental x-rays of teeth. Then we're basically just going to feed that through our AI model. We have this tooth segmentator, which will basically just segment out the teeth in the mouth from these x-rays. Then we can basically just annotate our images. We can label our images with this auto labeling model. Then we're basically just going to feed that through our model. We take the whole data set, feed it through our model, and then we can apply stages on top of that. We can either have like a consensus stage where we want to like check the difference between the AI model's annotations, but also like manual labeling by our team members. But we can also set up a logic stage here. So let's do that. So now we have our AI model. We get the predictions or the labels from our AI model. Then we're going to throw that through our logic stage, and then we can go inside of logic stage, set up our statements here, our conditional statements. So if our annotation is some value, so if we have detected a tooth polygon in our image, then we can then throw it through a review stage. So I'll just add that. So here we can add a review stage. So if our logic model here, or if our AI model has like segmented out some teeth in our images, we're just going to throw it through a review stage. If they're accepted in our review stage, we'll throw it into our complete dataset. Again, you guys can just see like how easy it is to set up these workflows and actually get started with creating these machine learning workflows and pipelines so we can train our models. So now if our logic here, so if our logic state goes down in the else statement, so that means that we have not detected any teeth in the image, then let's just go down here and say that we just want to archive those images, because then we don't have teeth in our images. So let's say that we just want to clean up our data set. So if we're not detecting teeth in the image, like any teeth in the image with our AI model. We're just going to archive those predictions. And then if they get rejected here in the review stage, we'll just add another annotation state. Then we throw it into an annotation state. After they have annotated here by our team members, we'll throw it through the review stage again. If they get accepted, we'll throw it into our complete data set. If they're rejected, we go down to an annotation state as well. We can also add another stages based on that. Also maybe a second review stage, but this is actually really easy to set up with these workflows, and we can use these logic stages to optimize our workflows even more and save a bunch of time when we're working with these large data sets. So thank you guys for watching this video here. And again, remember to subscribe button and bell notification under the video. Here in this video, we went over the logic stages, which is a new feature from V7. This is really useful. It can help optimize your workflows when you're creating these datasets, when you're labeling your datasets with larger teams. Really easy to set up these workflows. As I showed you, we went over 2 examples, which is actually like some really cool examples that can be useful in real life projects and applications. So I also have some other videos here on the channel. I have a playlist with these features from V7. If you're interested in that, definitely check it out. I'll link to the tutorial up here, or else I'll just see you next video, guys. Bye for now.